she was outside playing, and she saw basically a typical Bigfoot come out of the wood line and was sitting there staring at her. And it scares her, so she runs back in, and her aunt was saying, "That's a Bigfoot. Get out, get in the house." And so her aunt must have been seeing these, and her house was out there in the country a little bit.
Next up, I want to welcome Brenton Sawin to the show. His YouTube channel is In Search of Mysteries. Mysteries to Search. Great YouTube channel. I really enjoy your show. I enjoy the fact of, how you interview people is a lot like how I interview people. You don't beat people up. You just allow them to come on, tell their story. And, it's kind of a rare talent, man, because it's one of those things, I hear so many other podcasts where they crack jokes, they turn it into a joke, and it's really not a joke when someone's gone through something traumatic. But welcome to the show, Brenton. Thanks for coming on, man.
Well, thank you, Wes. I appreciate you having me. And your show was the first show I ever started listening to, Bigfoot encounters, and it made me want to pursue some of the people that had emailed me about Bigfoot stuff, that I needed to know more about it. And that you informed a lot of people about this phenomenon, and the stories to me are what convinces me most of all, not the evidence that people bring, or just the stories.
No, I tend to agree with you, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Before we jump into, I know you have so many, you're like me. That's why I enjoy talking to you, is because, people hear the show on Sunday, for example, in my thing, or they'll hear the show on Friday. Well, most people don't realize behind the scenes is I've spoken with 20 people. A lot of times they don't want to come on the air, but there's so much more than what people hear on the show. And I know you're in the same boat, but you had an encounter, a very strange encounter. For the audience, would you kind of start from the beginning, tell them what you're out doing, and then walk us right into the encounter?
We went, basically, me and a buddy of mine went to Dale Hollow Lake, and we were going to camp on a little island that's called Trooper Island there. And the water was up high. We didn't know that the water was up high because we'd never really been to that lake before. But anyway, we went across from the marina and found what we thought was Trooper Island, and we seen a campsite there, and we set up, the tent and everything, and had a little dog with us, and we went to setting out our fishing poles. I had like 6 fishing poles out, with worms and stuff on them, to try to catch some fish. And immediately I started noticing like a tree fall over up on the ridge, 75 yards up the hill. The woods was real thick, and I heard a tree just like fall, and I thought, wow, that's kind of thinking Bigfoot, when I first, heard it. But I was thinking, no, we're on an island, I was not getting Bigfoot. And another hour goes by, and I heard another one, like something huge falling, and I was big tree breaks. When you hear a big limb snap, it just sounds different, like pow. I was hearing that quite often up the hill, and I was kind of, thinking, no, not here. That wouldn't be, something that could be happening here. And so I just kept on fishing, and while I was fishing, these little acorn-like things was falling in the water. And you're a rational explanation for everything first, So I was thinking, wow, stuff's falling off this tree and into the water. But later I got to looking, and that tree was like 20 yards from the water. There's no way, anything was falling into the water from that tree. And so anyway, we had stuff being thrown at us while we were fishing, tree snaps and tree breaks and stuff like that. And and so I was thinking, that seems kind of squatchy to me. So I start to walk up the hill to get to where the wood line is real thick and what have you. And the closer I got, the more of that weird feeling that I was getting. And I hear a lot of people talk about that. They felt like, don't go up there. And that's the kind of feeling I was getting. And I've never really had that in the woods before. And anyway, so I kind of turned around. I went up a little ways and kind of looked, and I didn't see nothing. And I went back down, and I kept watching up there. And every once in a while, I would see like a glimpse of something going by, like a human-looking figure going by. And I thought, well, that must be someone up there collecting firewood that's camping on the other side. So the next time we went on the boat, I kind of was looking around over, we went around the point there, and I was looking for other campsites. I was asking my friend, is there other campsites? He said, no, there's none that I've seen since we've been here. And turns out we weren't on the island. We were on the end of a point that basically is part of the national forest there that's on the Kentucky side. There's only one, and I don't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's Dale Hollow National Park, National Forest, something like that. And and it came time to go. I was going to get some sleep, and my buddy he got this new boat, so he was constantly going out. He'd snag a little bit of sleep, and he would leave and go night and things like that, and as I was in the tent, the dog kept like snuggling up to me and nosing under me. It was like he was trying to get underneath me, and I was like, "What the heck's wrong with the dog?" And the dog wouldn't come out of the tent. I mean, even when we would leave the tent, the dog wouldn't come out. And I started hearing like footsteps, around the tent, and I thought, well, that's my buddy. I woke up and I was hearing something walking. And I was like, hey, Mike, is that you? Is that you? And I didn't hear any answer, so I thought maybe he was messing with me or something. And then 10 minutes passed, and I hear this thing walking off. And then I hear the boat pull up. And then I hear him get out of the boat and say, hey, are you up? It's like, dang, that wasn't my buddy.
Yeah.
And he comes up there and tries to get his dog. It was his dog, and he unzips the tent, and he's like, come on, Molly. And the dog wouldn't come out. And he was like, what the heck's wrong with the dog? Because that dog usually is running everywhere on the whole time to come back. Get back here, Molly. And it's kind of almost a little bit nerve-wracking for him to bring his dog because of that. But this trip, man, I'm telling you, this dog wouldn't leave my side or his side, or wouldn't leave the tent the whole time. And so that's about the extent of what I experienced. And it made me think back to, stories where people would tell me their story and they were rationalizing it to think, well, that's not what I saw, or that's, I think there's a lot of people out there that has had things like that happen, and they ignore it and they blow it off and they try to make it into something else. But I think one of the biggest clues when you're out is your dog. And I've heard Bear and Kumbo talk about this. My dog was trying to get underneath my cot. I think Kumbo takes a cot and stuff when he can, and living it up a little bit there. I think, but I was listening to some stories and I was hearing that about the dog, and I wished I had have paid more attention and maybe tried to get capture some footage or something like that. But I didn't really realize it until we were leaving. And I was thinking back on it, and I was talking to someone at the marina, and he said that that's not Trooper Island that you were on. That the water is up because they were working on the dams down here in Kentucky. There was 2 or 3 of them that were had cracks in them, and there was this thing trying to get the dams up where they wouldn't kill thousands of people or something. So they would lower the water in one and go high in another lake downstream, or vice versa, so. But after I posted my story there, I did have a fella who said that he had an encounter not far from that. So I think I'm going to go back down to Dale Hollow into that national park there and do some squatching at some point when it cools off, for sure. But yeah, that's my encounter. Not fantastic, but it was. I'm
No, it's
glad I didn't
interesting.
know, because I would have been more scared with something walking around my tent. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I know the guest I just had on, she was talking about seeing what she thought was a huge pile of hay in the middle of the road. And she didn't believe in Bigfoot. Now she's driving up on it. It stands up, and then she thinks it's a grizzly bear. But the behavior and everything that it does, the
Yeah.
point I'm trying to make is, you're right. If you don't believe in Bigfoot, you're not really sure what to make of some of these situations. Now I know you've spoken to a lot of witnesses. Is there any terrifying encounters that you've come across speaking to witnesses? And that applies to Dogman or anything else.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I'm going to have this one lady on next week, and I'll give you a little bit of what she had happen, and that was here in Kentucky. Um, and she's a pastor too, so I can't really give her name. And I don't, I think she's afraid her church will find out she had this encounter.
Yeah.
But when this was back in the 70s. She'd watched a few of the videos, and she just felt she needed to get this off her chest and what have you. But she was at her aunt's house, and she was outside playing, and she saw basically a typical Bigfoot come out of the wood line and was sitting there staring at her. And she said it was maybe only like 6.5 feet tall or so. And it scares her. So she runs back in, and her aunt is disabled. I think she had diabetes bad. She lost both her legs. And her aunt was saying, "That's a Bigfoot. Get out, get in the house." And so her aunt must have been seeing these. And her house was out there in the country a little bit. And well, her aunt tells her, put some of this perfume on so it doesn't get your scent. I've never heard of that before, but that stood out in her mind because of something that happens a little later. Anyway, so she puts this perfume on, and she's worried about this Bigfoot like getting her scent and stuff. And she ends up going back home, and her home is on the edge of the town here in Lexington. And it was before the town built up very, very much. The town is way different than it was even back in the 90s. And she got up one night, she heard something, and she kind of came down the hallway, and there was a creature there was a dad, what she thought was the dad, the mom, and two little ones in the house. In the house.
In the house?
They had in the house. Yeah. This is not the first in the house story I've had. She said it had red eyes, had the red glow eyes, kind of like the Janoskwa stories that you hear. That people call them Janoskwa or whatever when they have the red eyes.
And you're breaking up a little bit. So all these creatures had red eyes, and they were inside the home? Okay.
That's what she said, yeah. So I didn't really know what to think about that. Didn't know if it was maybe some paranormal experience or something. But she said they were all Bigfoot. They looked like Bigfoot, And so she was kind of, freaking out, not knowing what to do. And the couch was right there. They were all, kind of 20 feet or so away. So she dives over there to the couch and covers up, and she just like trying to hide, and hoping that they would go away. And she said the big one walks over there and pats her to feel like, feel if she's there. Like she said, it felt like it was saying, is that you? Is that her? On the couch covered up. And anyway, she said after it did that, it turned around and she heard it walk off, and they left. And a day or two later, her and two of her cousins were on the bed in one of the bedrooms, and it was nighttime. The mom and everybody was asleep. And one of them came in, reached in, and flipped the whole bed over. And they were all freaked out, screaming and yelling and stuff. And whenever she told her mom about it, she was basically saying that, oh, you're hallucinating, you're dreaming, or that, something, try to explain it like that. And she said, and the thing, both flipped the bed. And then she seen it one more time looking in the window, and it scared all the kids again. And after that, she saw it no more. And
What do you make of that? Because I haven't heard too many encounters like that. I mean,
neither.
you have to take the witness for their word, and that's an odd story for someone to make up. But I don't even know what to think of that. What's your take on it?
Well, the only reason I even listened to it and I was going to let her tell it is because there's a guy down in Florida who I've had on the show, and he remembers back when he was a kid, um, his dad like tying pots and pans and things like that to the door so that it would make noise if something tried to open the door. And he remembers, having their parents having people over there playing cards, and they were saying, something about that devil out on the porch. It's out there, that kind of thing. And that kind of stuck in his mind, with these little early warning devices his dad was putting up and what have you. And he was in bed one night, and it was a bunk bed. It was on the top bunk, and he woke up in the middle of the night and said there was a foot standing there staring at him, and he thought that it was like a juvenile or something, about 6 foot tall or so, standing there looking at him. And he said he could feel the breath of this thing breathing on him and what have you. And he was paralyzed in fear, and he just, kept waiting for it to go away, kind of closing his eyes, asking God, please God, kind of thing. And he said then he heard it leave. And the next morning he got in trouble because sand was tracked into the house, into his bedroom and stuff like that. And so that really stood out to him as he was getting in trouble, and he tried to tell his mom, that wasn't me that tracked this in. And I don't know. I just believed the guy, the way he told the story and what have you. It seemed to me that he was telling about something that really happened. And then the other things that the parents were aware of something out there. You don't just put pots and pans on the door and thing, So that's only 2 times I know of them coming in the house.
Yeah, no, I've had a few encounters of them coming in the home, but it's usually to take food, or it's just strange stuff. But I have had encounters of them coming in the house, people's homes, and you wouldn't think that, but why not? Why wouldn't they come in? You hear them rattling the door handle all the time. I'm sure you've had those encounters on your show where they come up, rattle the door handle like they're trying to figure out how to come in, and that's terrifying, man, for them to come in your home. Kind of reminds me of the Cowman story about the little boy that they ended up shooting it, and the whole family left, and then they came in the next day, and it looked like a giant had been in the house, like it had smashed its fists in the roof, smashed its fists in the walls. I mean, it was a terrifying story. So I could see them coming into a home if they can get in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll tell you another story that some people say, they try to dismiss it, but it came off as true to me. There was this girl, her and her mother had an encounter when she was young, and the parent were pulling in down the drive, and there was a Sasquatch rocking the one of those silver type long campers, the old school campers, it was rocking this thing, and the parents were, knew the daughter was in there, and the daughter is the mother in the story. She remembered her mother's talking about this story. So go on down to, I don't remember what year it was, but anyway, they were in Oklahoma, and they were supposed to be there for 2 weeks and then go to California is what the deal was, because their grandfather, he was a Native American. He had some, and that's just kind of the way that it was going to work out for them. Stay 2 weeks there, and then everything would be ready for them to go to California. But while they were there, they befriended this elderly lady that lived across the street. That basically they were the only two houses within miles. There was nothing else around. And this elderly lady was making them, food and stuff, and was really nice to this little girl. She was only like 9 years old, something like that at the time, and the other sister was maybe 12, something like that. And there was one night they woke her up with her hand over her mouth, saying, "Shh, don't make a noise." And she was freaking out, thinking, what's going on here? What's going on? And they kept her mom kept easing up to the window watching, and they could hear two things making some growls and howls and things like that. And it sounded like chatter, like that. I don't know, those one recordings where it sounds like samurai chatter, They was hearing that, and like two creatures talking, and they were yelling, and they were beating on the door of this elderly lady's house. And she said this door was like a really, really tall, oversized oak door that had like a rounded top on it. But she remembers how big that door was, solid oak, humongous door. And they were watching through the window. There was a big Sasquatch, and there was one that was a little smaller standing on the porch beating on this door. And they ended up beating that door down, and they heard that woman screaming, and they all ended up going into the cellar. They, in Oklahoma, a lot of times you go to a cellar for tornado protection, and they were, told to go down in there, stay there, don't make a sound, and they just basically barricaded themselves in until they heard, being silent long enough, and it ended up being released and everything over there. They heard the woman screaming and what have you, and according to her, she said that that woman was missing, and there was like blood and stuff like that around, like there was some type of battle, and then basically the police like everything off and what have you. I thought that was a pretty fantastic story.
You kind of broke up there. So the old woman came up missing?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And she said that her I guess it was the granddad that owned the house that they were staying in. He ended up having that house bulldozed down. And so I asked that woman, I said, okay, now, was this woman, it turned out this old lady had deep freeze on her porch. And she remembered it having a lock on it or anything like that. And she said, yeah, it was padlocked. And she remembered that woman complaining about stuff coming up missing out of that, them things stealing. So I guess it came off as if that lady knew about these creatures coming and stealing. And she had told asked the mother if any of the girls were grown up enough to have that time yet, And she said, if they are, do not put that stuff outside in the trash can. And just so happened that the older sister was, and they, they were thinking, well, why not? Why not put it, they couldn't figure that out. And later, on reflecting on it, that's what they said. Now, you just have to hear the whole story, hear the emotion in the woman's voice. It was, to me, it came off as real to me, true to me. So, I let her tell the story, and it was pretty wild, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think a lot of these stories, I think people are telling the truth. I mean, I just do. I've only had a couple crazy people I've spoken with on the phone where I thought, this guy is insane. This guy is completely insane. But I would say most of the stories, and that's the crazy part most people don't understand, when they come on the air, most people really don't want to come on the air. Right. It's like pulling teeth half the time to get them to come on the air. And they don't really want to tell their story, and they'll tell you in private, but they don't want to do it publicly. Through all your research and looking into this, what do you think Sasquatch is?
Uh, I think it's a physical creature that lives in the woods, and it eats and it hunts and it has to survive. I think it steers clear of humans. Um, the intelligence factor is that they seem to be very intelligent. Um, so, I, from a biblical worldview, it seems to me to be some remnant of a Nephilim type thing, but I don't know for sure. I mean that would just only be the only way I could reconcile it with faith issues and things like that. And some people don't care about that, I guess. But I don't think it's just an ape. They're too smart, and and they're too human-like. I mean, so many of the reports when the people look at them close up in the eyes, there's a human aspect to it, but there's also an ape aspect to it. So that seems to be the most plausible explanation. And that makes it a physical creature. In the scriptures, Israel pursued Nephilim and killed them all time. So there could be different types of them. If you go down that road, that could explain it very well. That's my opinion on the Bigfoot. If it's an ape, well, it's a smart ape. To have language and even culture. Sometimes they're seen wearing something. I've had reports of them wearing like a gator skin type thing. I've got a picture of one, and it to me it's pretty clear. I mean, I can look at it and it looks pretty clear to me. But it has like a piercing through the nose, like a bone through the nose, and that would signify culture. You don't pierce things, without having some type
And
of
that was
culture.
a Sasquatch?
Yeah, yeah, and it looked like an ape with Down syndrome. Uh, yeah, and it had the bone through its nose, and it was eating on something, and it looked to me like it was like a baby bird that the feathers were off or something. It had was biting on it, but you can see the bone, you can see the face. It looked kind of orangutan-ish with eyes kind of closer set. It looked kind of Down syndrome, like inbred maybe. And that was from Louisiana. Um, and it was an island that these things were on also. So, pretty good picture. I'm telling you, I thought it was a good picture. And I thought it was clear too. But see, when you show someone a picture, it's kind of like, I don't see it, It's like, dude, it's right there, like you can't see that. And, it looks clear to me. And, so I don't know. That's my opinion on the Bigfoot. Now, I think there's several different types, different descriptions throughout the country and what have you. And but when it comes to Dogman, I don't know about that. I've gotten some bizarre stories on Dogman, but they seem to be a physical creature too. But then there seems to be some strange aspects to those.
What kind of stories are you getting with Dogman? Some of the stranger ones.
Uh, let's see. Well, I've got one coming up where, for some reason, this guy he had bought a piece of property out in, I think it's Wisconsin, and he has another house in Minnesota, and he travels down to Wisconsin all the time. And he had some construction projects going on there. I guess he was, doing some stuff to this cabin. He's been using it kind of as a hunting cabin and what have you. And there's a Dogman type creature that keeps popping up, and it is tearing up all of the tools, throwing like huge toolboxes that weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds, like 40 yards into the woods, bending titanium, big titanium tools and bending them, dented the bucket on the Bobcat even. How in the heck could you do that?
Yeah.
And he shot at it and he said, I know I hit this thing twice. And he said it kind of knocked it down when he hit it with once, but it didn't seem to phase it that much. And it took off and it was mowing down. He said it wasn't even like avoiding trees. It was, he was just tearing everything down. And yeah, that's one that I should be getting. Actually, I'm supposed to interview him tonight at 7. That's going to be an interesting one. Um,
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think of that Dogman. I get a lot of strange reports with the Dogman. And I would say some of the reports I get are there's a lot of paranormal activity, and then some of them there's none. But for me, it's just so hard to believe. I know, like with Sasquatch, you can think, okay, it's some undiscovered primate running around. We haven't found it yet. It leaves tracks. But some of these Dogman stories, man, are just. It's like, well, where did that come from? You know what I mean? I haven't seen too many dogs or canines get up on 2 legs and run around. And I'm not discrediting anyone's story by any means. I actually believe that Dogman's real. It's a real entity out there. But you just get some of these weird stories. And I don't know if you found this or not, Brenton, but one of the things I found with Dogman is you generally get very aggressive type stories. Way more than Sasquatch. You know, Sasquatch, it's 50-50. Sometimes they walk away, sometimes they don't. And if they don't, you got problems. But I can't say that I've really had too many Dogman encounters to where they just get up and walk away. It seems like it's always aggressive with them.
yeah,
Have you found that?
yeah, yeah. And a very, very extra projected fear. Like when you say, some people say, I get that, I had that feeling, don't go there, turn around or something like that. The Dogman thing, there's an exponential extra bit of the fear factor that comes in. And I can understand why, especially when you see it, because but a lot of times people get that before they ever even see it, so that makes you wonder, what the heck, what could be making you fear before you see. That's just mind blowing. It has to be something, like, whether it's infrasound or something that you're picking up on that you're not necessarily understanding. You're picking it up, but you're picking it up somehow. So yeah, that's some scary stuff. And another thing too that I've been noticing with the Dogman and the Bigfoot is the dogs don't usually turn out so good. They get their all into the deal. This guy that has the Dogman around his property there. There's also a Native American reservation. He was going to go talk to them soon and ask about it, and he even called the people that own the property for him and said, "Look, you didn't tell me about this that was going on," and they admitted there was something going on there, and he lost his favorite dog and 2 cats that he said, "I don't even like cats that much, but I like these 2 cats." But both of them come up missing. The 2 cats and his favorite dog. It was a big dog too. I can't remember what breed it was, but it was a humongous dog. And I've had so many stories. I've had stories where the creature picked the dog up and threw it through the window into the house. Yeah, the guy down in Oklahoma. Oklahoma Bigfoot seems to be aggressive, man. But
I'd agree with that.
He got the dog because there was something snooping around and throwing rocks at the house and things like that. And whenever the thing came around, the dog would bark and want to get outside, and it takes off around the house. And all of a sudden, he hears the glass breaking, and he runs down the hallway looking in each room and seeing that the window busted out, and that huge dog was underneath the bed, shivering. And it was an aggressive dog. And that's why he ended up getting it, because this lady that had the dog said, I can't do nothing with this dog. It's too aggressive. After that encounter, this dog was so passive that it didn't want to ever go outside.
I bet. I don't blame it.
He gave the dog back to the lady, and she loved it after that. She said, "This dog's not aggressive no more. I don't know what you did there," but but he ended up getting hit by infrasound. He was going up one of those, where they put the power lines. They cut the swath out. He was walking up through there with a friend and his little brother. His friend was up like maybe 20 yards ahead, and he all of a sudden he was feeling like there was this buzzing sound of like bees, and it was lulling him into almost a trance. And he was sitting there thinking, what? He's like, did you hear? He was snapping out. It's like something is humming and is kind of bringing me into like a trance feeling. And as soon as he recognized it, he kind of shook his head and started to ask, do you hear that? Some roared at him, and he said this roar shook him to the core, like shook his organs and stuff, and so he grabs his little brother up and takes off, boom, running back down to the house, and then later on, his friend that was 20 yards up came back and said, why did you take off? Where'd you go? And he said, you didn't hear that roar, and that the guy that was up 20 yards ahead didn't hear it, and or at least said he didn't hear it. I don't know, but but anyway, I think he had some stuff going on his property that was pretty bad, and he only saw it once. Later, he would walk down the road on the back then. Sometimes they didn't have a car, so he would walk across down the road, and there's a little bridge, and he had something following him on the side. It would be stepping along with him stepping, and then basically a friend of his saw the Sasquatch there, and he ended up seeing it later in that spot there. But it always would stop when he got to the bridge. It wouldn't pursue any further. So anyway, I thought he had a area there that was certainly having some activity, but he was always blowing it off, like didn't know what it was going on. Stuff being thrown at the house, and something smacking the house, and all those type things. And later, he kind of figured out kind of what was going on. But and another case that I thought was really strange. Can't remember what state this was from, but they were having some Bigfoot coming to the property out in the country, and the dogs was always barking and carrying on, and the dad would end up with the shotgun, telling the kids get in the house and stuff like that. Like the dad knew and the grandpa knew what was going on. The kids were trying to figure it out, and and they would see the parents supposedly had seen the Sasquatch a few times, and then what started happening, they were out at the barn one day. This girl remembers being out there with her granddad, and there was something sticking out from underneath the barn, and he goes to pulling it, and it was a decapitated dog.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
Yeah, and the thing is this wasn't their dog, and the neighbors were having the same problem. They were having dogs being killed and stuffed under the buildings in the area, and not just one but several cases of dogs being killed, and they were like shoving them underneath the buildings around there, and I thought that
makes you wonder why they would do that, why the creatures would do that. Saving them for later, or
I don't know, but they were killing the dogs and bringing them to this area and doing this because it wasn't their dogs, it wasn't the neighbors' dogs, because they were trying to figure that out. It's like, whose dog is this? I don't know if that was a signal to the dogs or a signal to them to put their dogs up, or or what the deal was. But yeah, that's bizarre. The dogs don't get the good end of the deal a lot of times.
No, I like taking dogs out when I go out. I like taking, even though my ex-girlfriend hates it when I do it, but I like taking our dog out because they can alert you to different things. And now I'd never put him in a position to where he's up against one of these things or any other predator. I'd get in between. I'd take a bullet for the dog. I hate to say that, but I'd take a bullet for this dog. But the dogs do give these things away, and you hear encounters to where the run-ins with dogs. Sasquatch has got no love for dogs. I've never heard one encounter where maybe you have, Brenton, but I've never heard one positive encounter between a Sasquatch and a dog.
Right. Yeah. I've got one story I put up about a couple weeks ago, and they were having these Sasquatch creatures come into the orchard picking the fruit, and they had blackberries right up next to the house. And at nighttime, they could hear this thing brushing along the house, the blackberries, and scratching on the house, hitting on the house, stuff like that. And they had put the dog outside on a chain because I think one of them worked at night or something like that, and basically came up. The dog came up missing, and they found the chain up in a tree. But everybody got mad about that. Why would they put that dog out there? But it wasn't like they knew it was a Bigfoot at first. That's a progressive thing. A lot of times when you've got that kind of activity around your property, and so everybody was all real bad, mean to the guy about the dog, putting the dog out there so Bigfoot could get it. But are you going to tell people it's like, no, Grandma, I'm not going to put out the dog outside because Bigfoot's going to get it? Or, a lot of times it's not even stuff they admit to each other until later down the road or something. Or sometimes the parents don't even want the kids to know,
No, I had a guy on last week. I don't know if you heard the show. Was it last week or the week before? I don't remember exactly. But they had an encounter with one of these creatures, and they were out there, and they had the dog chained up to a tree. Well, when the creature showed itself, it freaked them all out. They all left the dog. They all took off running and left the poor dog behind. And when they came back really well armed. And when they came back, something had actually broke the chain from where the dog was tied to a tree. And he's like, there's no way this dog could have broke that chain. There's no way. And he said it looked like something had grabbed it, snapped it, and let the dog go. I guess that is one positive encounter I've had on the show. I guess I lied earlier. But it may be, I even asked the witness, I said, do you think Sasquatch probably broke that chain? Or do you think your dog broke that chain? And he said, Wes, there's no way that dog could have broke that chain. It's not physically possible for that dog to break the chain. So you never know, I guess, with these things. But I think I would venture to guess 99% of the time, Sasquatch has no love for dogs.
No. Yeah. Hey, I had one more I thought you might like. There's this guy, his name's Jay. We'll just say his name is Jay. He was going to a get-together on Vancouver Island, and once you come across on the ferry, it's kind of cheap to get over, but they charge you an arm and a leg to get back across. So anyway, that's one thing he threw in there when he was telling me the story. But I guess they were pagans or something. I ended up fishing this out of him later, and they were doing some kind of winter solstice or fall kind of something ceremony type thing. He said party at first, but or get together, and whether that's important, I don't know. But anyway, they go to this person's house on Vancouver Island, and they start their singing and dancing stuff, all the things that whatever you do when you have one of those type things, and burning of incense or whatever. Right. And they heard like a roar coming from like the right, and then it was something that kind of it roars from the left and something kind of back, and it was in the distance, and then they would hear it again, and it'd be a little closer. And again, and it was closer, so you could tell these things were coming. And the woman who owned the house, she said, "Everybody get in the house and go to the basement, and we'll continue in there." And he was kind of curious what the heck that was, so he kind of was sneaking up the stairs, and the husband and the wife were talking there, and she was like, "Of all nights for this to happen, these things have got to come tonight." And she was like, I'm getting tired of this, and blah, 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 And so it seemed to him to be something that happened kind of regular. And he said that you could hear when these things got to the backyard, they were mad. They tore the fence. They bent one of the kids' bikes in half and threw it like some like 90 feet up into one of those real big trees, old growth type trees, and it's still there. Basically, he said, and it, it turned everything over, just destroyed everything in the backyard, fence and all, like it was really angry, and he was like, "What the heck was, what was that, And ended up the people who own that house ended up moving and getting out of there. But he reported that to me, that didn't know if it was Bigfoot or a Dogman kind of thing or something, but it seemed to be a pretty scary situation. And anyway, a little bit later he remembered that howl. Okay, the howls that were coming from the distance, getting closer. He went camping. This guy was gay, so he was with his lover guy there, and they were going on a like this whitewater type thing, and there's this island out there that they could camp on. Seemed like we've got a lot of islands in this story,
Right.
But that's the story. He said there was an island up there, and as they were approaching this island that they were going to camp on, there was somebody paddling. Said, "Don't go to that island." And he was thinking, yeah, the guy
See,
must be.
you broke up there. So someone was paddling. They passed someone. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there was someone leaving that island paddling.
Oh, I got you.
He told them, "Don't go to that island."
Right.
And as he went by, and he thought, well, the guy's just, he must be stoned or something,
Right.
And they went over there, and they set up their little camp and stuff, and they had a little dog with them too, and they were making a little fire, and when they were getting the fire going, there was like a 6 foot long, about 6 inch in diameter, is what he said, log that come flying out and land on the solid rock there that they were camping at and had the fire on, and it busted up. And they were kind of freaked out by it at first, but they was putting some of the those pieces that broke off on the fire.
Yeah.
And
Like, thanks for the firewood.
Yeah, thanks for the firewood. And anyway, the dog would going over kind of towards the wooded part there and bark every once in a while, and it would take off running and go into the tent, and he was kind of wanting to think, maybe we ought to leave here. And he said his boyfriend was telling him, nah, that's stupid, we ain't leaving. He didn't believe in nothing like that, and anyway, some rocks started getting thrown at him, and I think at one point they like turned the flashlights over, and something roared at them, and he remembered that roar from before. So he's like, heck with this. He started packing up and said, no, we're getting out of here. And he was having an argument about them leaving, and as he was having that argument, a good sized rock came out and knocked the guitar out of the other fellow's hand, and then he stopped arguing about it. So they get all their stuff packed up, and they put it in their little boat thing, and they row off, across the water, and and as they were rowing off, there was a few other big, good-sized rocks being thrown at them, landing in the water. And they ended up camping on the other side because they had been, drinking and stuff a little bit, and they didn't want to, I guess, leave out. And he ended up getting a bottle of rum out of his truck or something like that, and ended up later down the road. He said that guy he was with, he went and even had to seek therapy over what had happened. It scared him so bad, and he ends up later down the road, he committed suicide, and only 2 things was in the suicide note. He said that I love you, and he said stay away from the Sasquatch. That's what he said, and so
sad story.
Yeah, no doubt, man. For two things to be in your suicide note, and one of them stay away from the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
That left an indelible mark on the mind there. Yeah, that guy had some wild stories. He even has a few more stories, but they're more on the paranormal end. And I haven't really, got to that because I, for one, is he kind of was believing a little bit different what was going on in his situation. I thought, hey man, you might ought to listen to what I'm telling you here, But
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That you, I mean, Satan worshiping to his boyfriend to committing suicide.
yeah,
That's a wild story, man. That's a wild story.
yeah, I was concerned about him too because he was having other activity stuff starting to happen in his house, like seeing shadow people type things, and then go into the living room and the couch is flipped up on the end. It's like, dude, it's time to
Time to move.
time to listen to what I'm telling you here. Get away from that other stuff there, man. It's not turning out so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brenton, I appreciate you coming on. Everyone go out and check out Brenton Sawin. Mysteries to Search on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description for the show. If you get a chance, go check his channel out. You do a great job, Brenton. Again, I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. I actually do watch your show a lot, and I've been trying to post it to the blog, but I'll put it up on the blog and in the description below for the show. Definitely go check it out. It's definitely worth. If you like Sasquatch Chronicles, you'll like Brenton's show. Absolutely. One of the best out there.
Here's Will coming down the spine of the hill. I'm on a log. There he goes, gonna get some air. Here, are you okay?
I'm dying. Help me.